April, I'm so excited to have you on the podcast and particularly to be a part of this New Year Heal to Me campaign because we are all about not changing ourselves radically, but healing ourselves in 2025. And what better way to do that than to goal set, goal plan, and execute those goals in a way that doesn't, make us push or hustle, but
Mhm.
still gets things accomplished. And so you were on my mind to have this conversation with. And so before we get into all of that, because I'm really excited to jump in, I
Yeah,
just want to pause and ask, how are you doing?
I'm doing okay. I'm doing okay. Being here with you, it makes it all a cherry on top. So I'm just happy to be here. Yeah.
Aw, so happy to have you.
Mhm.
And I like we were talking off camera a bit that you were like you had your own goals and part of this was getting podcast coverage and coming on podcasts. And so you are kind of out here really setting a model and a standard for goal planning and execution. You're clearly very accomplished. We've talked about you in the intro and talked about all the things that you've done. And so I want to ask when we're talking about setting goals for people who may have set them but don't often accomplish them. Like, I don't think goal setting is a new topic for people. I
Right.
think people are frustrated by it or don't feel like they're good at it or don't actually accomplish it. And so,
Yeah.
when it comes to goal setting, what's like the first step you recommend someone take to make sure that the goal is actually actionable, to make sure they're actually going to get it done?
Yeah. Well, the main thing is to understand what is it that you want and why do you want it, right? When your why
Yes.
is deep enough, you don't need to have any additional supporting facts for why this goal will become to realization or not, right? So if you think about something that is motivating you or creating that desire, that's the thing that's going to get you to the very end. And I think sometimes we think about goals, we think about sometimes a corporate jobs, like what is your goal? What do you want to achieve? And sometimes it can feel so overwhelming. But when you have purpose behind the goal and your why behind it, that's actually going to carry you through to see it to come to realization.
Yeah, I think a lot of times we are not honest about our whys, or we have whys that are embedded in struggle, right? So it's like, yeah, I want a summer body by June. That's my goal. But it's really when we get behind that, it's like, okay, and I'm not saying that you can't work out and look good for vacation, of
Right,
course.
right.
But when you kind of unpack it, it's like, well, is that for you? Or is that you're really down on yourself and you hate your body? Are we conforming to someone else's standards? Are we
Yeah,
hoping someone notices us? Like, what is the why behind that? And sometimes we have these like whys. Well, I want to get to this level of the corporate ladder. And it's kind of like,
mhm.
but why do you want to do that? I want more money. Okay, well, that's not necessarily going to be enough just saying, I want more money, right? You're going to have to unpack what is more money going to give you because that's what you're going to be visualizing on a goal, right? It's not going to be like,
Yeah,
oh, stacks of cash. It's going to be like, well, more money will help me take care of my family better and I love my family,
yeah,
or it's going to allow me to travel and I really want freedom of movement in my life. I
right.
think we sometimes don't go deep enough on the why. And would you say that's part of why some folks, like, they say, oh, I have my why, but then when you kind of unpack it, it's not really clear, or it's not a why big enough to keep you going 9 months down the road or
Yeah.
even 2 weeks down the road?
Yeah, and I think sometimes people think that they have to wait until the end of the year to start thinking about that goal.
Yeah.
And oftentimes, no matter what's going on in our life, you can readjust and shift where you are by not necessarily always saying a new goal, but a new vision, right? And what does that vision look like? What does it feel like? Why do you want it? How do you embrace that? And that's you creating then that life that you desire. So I believe that oftentimes the best time to do it is you can do it end of the year, yes, because everybody else is doing it. But it's when you're at your lowest point or when you feel like life is just hit you really hard, that's the best time to start thinking about what you want in that vision because that why is deep, right? One of the things that came up for me when I was 30, I had gotten laid off and I had this vision for myself. I'm gonna be 30 and have it together. That was me at 27, 28, 29. And 30 came and I was back at my parents' house that I grew up in after a layoff. And I was like, this cannot be my life. How did I get here? What am I going to do
Right.
to get out of this rut? And I was in a job that I loved. It was like this job, I can't believe how I got here. And then I was in Atlanta and I was really just enjoying life. When I got laid off, I was like, I'm going to go back home because I don't want to run out of money or I haven't run out of money. Like, what am I going to do? But what happened was I decided, what do I need to do so that I'm never in this position again? And that was just kind of my own thought. And I began to create a financial goal for myself to make sure I had enough money in my savings. So if I had that emergency funds, I was ready and prepared. And at the time, I was thinking about corporate, like the corporate ladder. Why did they lay me off? Like, I'm so young. I thought this was people that are in like their 50s, their 60s, 70s. I had a misperception of what that meant. But at the time, I said, I'm going to put some more letters behind my name. And maybe that's going to be the thing that's going to prevent me from not being in this position again. And I went and got my MBA, and I went and got a PMP, a project management professional. And I said, if I add these credentials behind it, why would they let me off? Because I got all this, this background, this education. And so that triggered me to create that goal of that passion, because my why was, I don't want to be back at my parents' house after a layoff, and I don't want to be laid off again. And so those are the things that kind of created that first initial big jump for me of being at my lowest and creating that new vision.
Yeah, and I think you've attached it to an emotion. And I think that's the
Mhm.
part that people don't understand. If you have a very kind of superficial why, it's not grounded enough in the emotion that allow you to visualize. You can't visualize shallow kind of goals, right? It's like, yeah, you can visualize a number in a bank, but you really had a little bit more to that, right? It's like,
Mhm.
I want to never be, I liked my job. I want to feel like I like my job. It's not just, I don't want to be in this position again. It's that I
Yeah.
want to like my job again. I like the city I was living in. I liked my lifestyle and I want this lifestyle. And so you get to this point where you're like, it's all gone. And how do I get it back? And that is the energy and the emotion that kind of brings you to set these goals. And so I think it's a very unique thought to think about. I think a lot of people think I have to feel better or have a specific time frame to set a goal. And you are telling us that actually you can have the most powerful realizations and goals achieved when
Mhm.
you're maybe not feeling your best, when things have not going the way you wanted it to go. And I
Mhm.
think that's a new thought. And I think that's also, for those watching us, my earphone here is falling out my ear. And I think for those who are in that space of it's been a terrible year.
Mhm.
I don't know if 2025 is going to be any good. I'm not feeling great crossing over. This is still an opportunity and a time to turn it around. And I just want to honor that. And to that point, you've created a planner. I have it right here, the one day
Hey,
planner, which I love. I love this
thank
planner
you.
because you can have emotions and you can have, it's connected.
Yeah.
We got our goal connected to a
Right.
feeling and to an emotion and to a vision for our lives. I also love that you use that. But we actually still have to do it. And
Yes.
that takes some structure. And so can you tell us, like, how does using planners in general or some system, I think is important. Step one, how does a system help with this process? And then specifically, how does this planner do that?
Yeah, well, I think the idea is being able to identify what your goal is and write it down, right? So
Yeah.
write the vision, make it super plain, and being able to really reflect on what it is that you want and put a date attached to it. What I like to do is with the goal is I state it as if it's already here, right? Or something that you're declaring that will happen. So I often start with a statement of I will, you fill in the blank of that goal, and then you put by and you put a date, right? And that date is specific. So what that does is it puts you in a frame of mind like, hey, I'm going to pursue this thing and I'm attaching a date to it, because then it kind of creates that accountability for yourself. And when you see it and when you write it down, there's an extra power or declaration that you're putting forth to make it come to life. And what I also like to say is start to think about what that vision is. What does it look like? What does it feel like for that particular goal to come to realization and to feel that it's already here? So in the planner, it asks you, how will your life be different when you achieve this? What benefit will it bring to your life? And then, oh, by the way, how will you celebrate it when you actually realize it? So I also believe that when you set a goal, it's important to acknowledge yourself for all the work and the commitment, the things that you've done to achieve it. So identify how you're going to celebrate it. And that way you put yourself already there in that celebration mode and the excitement of it being realized. So that's the framework at the very beginning, is really setting the stage. And then what happens in the planner is there's almost like, I don't want to call it a daily commitment, but it's a new habit you start to create. And it's a habit of a lifestyle that you're planning your day. So I think people use planners and think they're going to calculate all the tasks they have to do, all the appointments, and your life becomes full of task, 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 task. And I don't believe that that's the way we should live our lives. I know as Black women, we wear multiple hats. We're doing all these things and we're getting all these things done and checking all the boxes. But have you really enjoyed it as you've gone along this path? Are you really creating the life that you desire? So what's unique about this planner is it's set into 90 days. And so it's really about those 90 days of pursuing that goal. So you're able to think about every morning, what is it, right, that I'm seeking to achieve or pursue today? Yes. but I always start out with a moment of gratitude, right? In the planner, it's what am I grateful for? And every morning, we're not chasing things, we're just acknowledging what's already here. And that goes into our day of appreciation. Then there's a portion within the planner that has the affirmation. It's the I am statement that you write. You're affirming yourself about what do you want out of life? What do you want to become? Or what is this goal? Or who are you becoming? You're able to write it down daily. And again, it becomes a practice. And then within the planner, there's moments where you're actually identifying what are the 3 priorities for the day? What are 3 things that you want to do? And I want you to think of at least one thing that you want to do within your given day that's going to get you one step closer to the goal. Just one. And you're taking action every day. The brand and the actual planner is called One Day, because you're taking it one day at a time. So identify that one thing you're going to do, and then you set your intention for the day. How do you want to show up today, right? Is it an energy? Is it a vibe? Something that you want to do? And you map out your day with it being time blocks and organization. But the planner, it really creates a system. It walks you through. Oftentimes people consider it to be a journal because you're reflecting, you're thinking about things. But that's the intentionality behind living the life you deserve, because you're being intentional about how you're showing up and what you're doing and how you're spending your time.
Yeah, I love that because it really it walks you through a whole process of a lifestyle, and
Mhm.
it really works well with planners. I was telling
Mhm.
April I'm a huge planner person. Like I
Yeah,
got maybe a problem when it comes to planners. I got too many, but
yeah, yeah.
I like having one that has my to do tasks. But I
Mhm.
my favorite ones and are very much what you've just discussed, which is like it's yes, you everybody has a list, a to do list to do,
Yeah.
and they need to get it done. And it's nice to write it down or have it in a place where you know what am I supposed to be doing today for work. But it
Mhm.
also, when we talk about goals, we can just be in there's a beautiful balance that you've created with this like one day at a time mentality,
Yeah.
but also not getting lost in the day's task. So you're not actually building to anything. You can go
Yeah.
through weeks and months and years where you've done a bunch of stuff,
Right.
but none of it actually translates into the life you want to live. And this happens
Mhm.
with folks where they're like in a career and they're like, what happened? In a
Right.
relationship, what happened? I've been here, but it's not any of what I wanted. That 27-year-old you that said that you wanted to be this person at 30, it's like
Yeah.
you do a bunch of tasks and you're like, well, I'm 40, I'm 50, and I'm not that person. And
Yeah.
so it really finds a way to give you guidance into that and
Mhm.
make you reflective. So that's the first thing I really love. And the second thing I really love, which of course is all of this is a part of the kind of the way I do this podcast. But the second piece is
Mhm.
all about joy and having
Yes.
gratitude is to me linked to joy. It's a practice and
Mhm.
it's a discipline, but it unlocks joy.
Yeah.
And making sure that you are doing things that brings you joy.
Mhm.
If you are going to do a goal, and some of these goals, especially for us as Black women, are going to be big and ambitious and require work,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
But you need to find a way to link joy to that. I work really hard in my businesses. I work really hard in the podcast. But I
Yeah.
also can say I enjoy doing the podcast, even though it's a lot of work.
Right.
And so having that joy and having that framework to remind you, because there's going to be a point in your goal where you're like, really? Is this what I said I wanted to do?
Yes.
Maybe not. Maybe. And
Yeah.
you need to have something to remind you if you are doing this kind of process, you are
Mhm.
less likely to actually get to that point because you've embedded gratitude and joy along the way for what is and preparing yourself for what's to come.
Yeah, and that idea, I love all of that, Kelley. And that's why I fell in love with the podcast. Because for me, I'm always setting these big, audacious goals. I say, let's get to the bag, right? And that whole idea of getting to the bag is saying, it's really like living the life that you want and doing something you never done before. And when you're doing things you've never done before, you have to be able to navigate it with ease. You're going to feel overwhelmed. So it's like, I'm going to be grateful for where I am, right? That's the gratitude part. There's so much that I want to do and I want to achieve. I don't feel like I'm good enough for this or I'm not built for this. There's your affirmation, right? To remind you that you can, and you're reaffirming yourself with it every day. You have so many things I got to do. It's all these things. How am I going to do this goal? Well, let's calm. Let's identify the 3 priorities. All you need is 3 things you're going to focus on today, and that's it. And then you think to yourself, I got my thoughts. I got this. I got that. Calm down. What is your intention? Oprah always says, what is your intention? Right?
Yeah.
And that's where it came from. And within the planner, you're mapping out how you're going to spend hour by hour. What you're really doing is you're planning your joy, you're planning your
Yes.
softness, you're planning your boundaries, you're planning your no's. And you're able to do that because you already identified what is it that I need to do today. And it's easier to be able to say, no, I can't do that, primarily because I don't have the capacity or I just don't have the time. And that's okay. You're choosing yourself first. And that's what this planner is meant to do. And oh, by the way, when you get to the point where you feel overwhelmed or that you had a rough day, At the end of every day, there's a moment of reflection, and there's 3 questions you ask yourself. What was your biggest accomplishment for the day? So you can acknowledge what you've actually done. Then it's what worked well. So you can reaffirm to keep doing those things that worked, because you know something works, let's keep doing it. But then what didn't work well? I was stretched out, I only ate one time today, or I didn't have time for my son, or I didn't have time for me. Okay, let's acknowledge it. Because that next question is, well, what am I going to do differently tomorrow? How am I going to improve for the next day? And that's where you have continuous day-to-day changes, because you've acknowledged what's not working and what is, and what's the plan to adjust it. So we're going to get in these long ruts for weeks and days and months, and to say, man, my year was bad. Like, that was horrible. But we are assessing it every day. So that's the whole intention around it, to be more thoughtful of how we show up every day, be more thoughtful how we want to live our lives, so we can have the lives that we want, because we deserve it.
Yes. Yes, I think that's important. And I think the 1 day evaluation
Yeah.
keeps you from getting off track. It's like if you, and it also will keep you real with yourself, because I think the beautiful thing that you've made space for is you can go back and change the goal. Maybe the goal isn't the right one. Maybe as you go through, you're like, should I be doing this now? Every day I'm stretched thin. I have a newborn, or I just got, I'm in a partnership with someone and we just merged households. Maybe that specific goal isn't the one. Maybe I need to pull back and be like, maybe the goal needs to be more present as a parent, as a partner, or it's more time with my family. But you won't know that. Rather than saying, I have to do this in 6 months and
Yeah.
forcing yourself, you'll find that out real quick with your methodology, and still give yourself gratitude because you probably pushed the goal further,
Yep.
and give you start back again, go right back to that goal,
Yep.
cross it out, find a new goal, start again in the 90 days, because it's not just January to March kind of thing. It's
Yep.
any 90 days. And so I think it
Mhm.
leaves a lot of grace, it gives a lot of permission, and it brings a lot of ease to
Yes.
executing these kind of big, bold goals that I know all of us who are listening have in one
Mhm.
capacity or another. And so I really love that. I will say, we're going to have a special bonus with April where she walks us through our week, and I will join her while doing that. We'll walk through our weeks together using your planner. And
Yes.
so you'll get to see that in real time, because I think that's a real special process you have that we can't wait to uplift. So I want to close out here because I want them to come back and watch us plan out our weeks together. But this is supposed to be actionable, and I want people to leave this episode and do something.
Yes.
So, what do you want? What is that one simple action that you want listeners to take
Yes.
today to get them started, to get them motivated, to get them building the life of their dreams 1 day at a time?
All right, cool. So I want you to create the emotion, right, for what you desire to have. Go to your favorite place. It could be a coffee shop, it could be a vacation destination, wherever it is, I want you to go there, right? Grab a journal. Grab a journal, and I just want you to write out, what is the life that you want? How does it feel? What does it look like? Right? If you were to touch it, what is it like? If you were to taste it, what is it like? I want you to think about all 5 senses and just write it out and enjoy it. I want you to be in that place that you desire. And once you write it out, you can even do an example of the ideal day in that life that you desire.
Yeah.
What does it look like in the morning, to the afternoon, to the evening, and really feel that emotion. And I don't want you to do this at home in the same old traditional place that you've been. Go to a nice, quiet,
Somewhere.
go somewhere, to the spa. There's a beautiful place you can sit in the spa and do this, a hotel lobby, somewhere quiet, whatever it may be. But write it out, that vision. And then once you write it out, I then want you to find another quiet space, close your eyes and visualize it and feel it and literally walk through it. It's a meditative state. And whatever that vision that you write and you feel and you declare, I want you to hold on to that. And every day, I promise you guys, every day, just take a minute and go to that one paradise spot and think about it. It could be at home in the bed, but every day I want you to go there and visit the future, because what's going to happen is you're going to begin to realize it. You're going to start taking the actions and creating the emotions to actually have and do that thing that you desire, literally 1 day at a time.
Love that. And so for our listeners, baby step one, figure what that place is. Write
Yeah.
down where you're going to go in the next 7 days to do this work, in the next day or two. Maybe you need a little time because it's your favorite hotel lobby, you got to get there.
Yeah.
Write it down. Where is that place? Maybe it's just a nature walk behind your place. Wherever that is,
Mm-hmm.
write it down and commit to a date of when you're going to do that exercise so you can start really getting the life you deserve.
Yeah, and then get the planner to execute on it. That's it.
Yes, that's correct. And we
The
will
one
have a
day,
special code
yeah,
for all of our listeners, a percentage off. I highly recommend it. And come back and watch us live as
yeah,
we go through the week, because you have a special practice you do on Sundays that I think people will be excited to see. April,
yes.
thank you for coming on the podcast and for giving us this resource. This is such a beautiful resource. I can't wait for people to see it and use it.
Well, thank you so much, Kelley, and cheers to you, your listeners, and everything. It's going to be a really great year, and I'm excited for us all.
Yes, that say that again. Yes, it's going to be a really great year.
All
Thank you
right.
so much, April.
Thank you, Kelley.